Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei was thrown in a mysterious portal and came back stronger than Dragons Movie 2. Before we start, please go support isonku-sen for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistaken character's gender, but of course Issei is a male. Trailer. The blonde-haired girl with golden eyes is seen in an alley, somewhat scared since it was very late at night, and that's when the criminals appeared. The bad thing is that something worse will appear. Then a portal opens from which a monster comes out. Chica. Kai. She screamed, very scared. At that moment the monster pounces on the girl, who could only close her eyes, expecting the worst. But he felt nothing. When he opens his eyes he sees the decapitated monster. Then someone with black clothes, and under the hood you could see silver eyes, and he looked at her with a cold look. Change of scene. The leaders of the Yokai, Nordic, Angel, Fallen Angel and Demon factions are seen in a meeting along with Volley Lucifer's team and the Issei and Gremory groups. Azazel. Were you able to find him? He asked seriously. Michael. No, there is still no trace of him. He said worriedly. Azazel. It seems like 1,000 years ago when he left. He said with his typical smile. Zersich. He actually left 5 years ago. He said with a small smile. Change of scene. The guy is seen sitting in a dark room watching a screen where the same guy who saved the girl was seen fighting a monster. Wow, I never thought there would be someone who also had that status. See you soon. He said with a devilish smile. Chapter 1. It's been 5 years since Issei went to get married and kill the monsters. At that time things in the underworld changed. Rias and Sona received their punishment of not returning to the underworld until Issei forgives them. Milik is at that time trained to be as strong as Issei. Asper also trained to control his sacred gear, which he successfully achieved. But what shocked everyone is that he stopped dressing as a woman because he said he wants to be the man he promised Issei he would be. The rest of the Issei and Gremory retinues, upon learning what their kings did, began to distrust them, which made the pair of girls even sadder, as well as the twins, who were no longer looked upon favorably. Just as the Cows Brigade began attacking the factions. And finally the Yokai faction allied with the factions of Angels, Fallen Angels and Demons. Currently, the blonde with golden eyes could be seen in an alley, somewhat scared since it was very late at night, and that's when criminals appear. The bad thing is that something worse will appear. Then a portal opens from which a monster comes out. Chica. Kai. The girl screamed, very scared. At that moment, the monster pounced on the girl and could only close its eyes, waiting for the worst. But nothing happened. When he opened his eyes he saw the decapitated monster. Already someone in black clothes who was standing with his back turned with a sword in his hand. When she turned around the girl could see silver eyes that looked at her in a cold way. The girl was paralyzed by the way the man looked at her. Next time you go somewhere, try not to leave so late. He said seriously and then picked up the monster's head and body. That was the only thing he said before putting 2 fingers on his forehead and disappearing in a blur. The girl still couldn't move from the scene she just saw. Girl. What was that? First that thing was going to attack me and that guy showed up and killed it. He said, coming out of shock. Elsewhere. The leaders of the Yokai, Nordic, Angel, Fallen Angel and Demon factions are seen alongside Volley Lucifer's team and the Issei and Gremory entourages. Azazel. Is there any trace of him? He asked seriously. Michael. No, we haven't found any trace of him yet. He said worriedly. Azazel. It seems like it was 1,000 years ago when he left. He said now with his typical smile. Zersich. It was actually 5 years ago. He said with a small smile. At that the leader of the Yokai joins. Yasaka. I still don't know who you're talking about, could you tell me? Asked the leader of the Yokai. Zersich. Well, his name is Issei and he is the strongest human in the world. He said, seeing her. Yasaka. How strong? She asked, intrigued. Azazel. He could easily wipe us out without the slightest effort. He said calmly. Yasaka. What? It's a joke, right? She asked, very surprised. Michael. No joke, we saw what he's capable of. He said with a nervous smile. Yasaka. Well, and how did he get so strong? I asked a little nervously. Zersich. It's a long story, we'll tell it after we're done with this meeting. He said something serious. Auden. That reminds me, why were we called? He said, bored. Michael. Well, the topic we came to talk about is Rizavum Live and Lucifer. He said seriously. Zersich. Attacks of this type have been more frequent lately. He said equally seriously. Azazel. That's true, 2 weeks ago our territory was attacked by a bunch of rogue demons until I had to intervene. He said something serious. Yasaka. And what do you want? She asked curiously. Michael. Destroy everything. He said seriously. That left everyone listening surprised. Yasaka. And what does this Issei have to do with you looking for him? She asked seriously and intrigued. Azazel. He is the only one who has the power to send Rizavum's plans down the drain, just as he is capable of ending all of this. He said seriously. Auden. And how will we find him? He asked curiously. Azazel. We'll send Volley's team to look for him. He said, seeing Volley. The aforementioned became tense since thanks to the humiliation he received from the brown-haired man, he no longer trusted himself in fights, and there were times when he had nightmares. Volley. Why us? He asked, annoyed and nervous since he didn't want to see him again. Zersich. You are the most qualified for this job and your powers have increased since last time. He said, seeing him. Hiroka. I'll finally be able to meet the one who gives Volley nightmares, Naya. He said with a mocking smile. Volley. Don't bother. He said, annoyed. The others in his group held back their laughter while the others watched this with a drop of an I'm-style sweat. Change of scene. The same man from the alley is seen in a cabin in the middle of the woods. This one was sitting watching the night sky. Then he comes in and lights some candles to illuminate the interior. After finishing doing that, he takes off his hood, revealing our protagonist. Issei. Wow, I just hope that girl doesn't tell anyone anything, although I don't think they'll believe it. He said, sitting on a chair. Issei. I've been doing this for 5 years and I still can't find the reason why this happens. He said seriously. At that he draws his sword. Issei. Now that I think about it, I should give you a name. He said, looking at his sword. Issei. I can't think of anything. I know your name will be Lost Vein. Chapter 2. 2 weeks had passed and Volley's team hadn't found a single trace. Volley, for a moment, thought he was dead, but immediately dismissed the idea as it was absurd. While the others were arranging their affairs and the leaders of the allied factions kept their security at its maximum to prevent any attack. Currently, Volley's team is seen walking through a forest. Arthur. Hey Volley, we should go, this is really annoying me. He said, annoyed. Lefei. Don't be so bitter, besides, I'm eager to meet him. He said happily. Hiroka. I also want to know Volley's greatest fear. He said with a mocking smile. Volley. This is the 1000th time I've told you I'm not afraid of him. He said, annoyed. Iku. Come on, why don't you admit it? He asked with a smile, looking at Volley. Volley. Why isn't it like that? He said, already angry. Iku, well, don't be angry. He said, something scared. Lefei. Look, it's a cabin. He said, pointing to a somewhat worn cabin. That's where they come closer. Hiroka. Do you think he's there? She asked curiously. Arthur. No, let's go. He said, annoyed. Hiroka. Now what do we do? She asked, intrigued. Arthur. I say we destroy the house, see if it's there. He said seriously. Iku. I say we knock on the door and say it's a pizza. He said with a smile. Arthur. What a stupid idea. He said, annoyed. Iku. Hey. Your idea isn't good either. He said, annoyed. Lefei. Instead of arguing, we should. He didn't finish because he heard something fall behind everyone. What are you doing here? Asked a person in black clothes. Arthur. And who are you? He asked, putting Lefei behind him. That's what I should ask, but first tell me what you want in this place. He said seriously. Volley. Nothing that matters to you, human. He said seriously and called everyone's attention. When saw the silver-haired man, he became a little more serious. I know you. He said in a cold manner, causing everyone to shiver. Volley. Lie, I've never seen you in my life. He said seriously. Well. That was the only thing he said before taking off his hood, revealing the protagonist with silver eyes. When Volley saw his face, he became nervous and began to twitch slightly. Issei. And now? He asked seriously, staring at the silver-haired man who began to tremble more. Volley, I say. He said, something scared, something that his companions noticed. Iku. He is? He asked in surprise. Arthur. Hey, are you the one who fought in the invasion of the underworld 5 years ago? He asked seriously. Issei. And who are you? Cold asked. Lefei. We are Volley-sama's companions. She said shyly. Issei. Okay, but they haven't answered my question yet. He said seriously, looking coldly at everyone. Hiroka. We were looking for you. She said, scared by the way he looked at them. Issei. For what? He asked seriously. Arthur. The factions are under attack. He said seriously, looking at the brown-haired man. Issei. And what do I have to do with it? Cold asked. Iku. They sent us to look for you because the leaders said that your power is capable of causing the apocalypse. He said, something serious. Issei, Yavio. He said seriously. Hiroka. And will you accompany us? She asked curiously. Issei. No. Everyone was very surprised by that statement. Lefei. But why? We thought you were on our side. She asked said surprised. Issei. I'm not on anyone's side or to fix their problems, I only fight for those who truly need it. He said opening the door of his cabin. Hiroka. But the leaders promised they would give you a reward. She said nervously, stopping the brown-haired boy. At that Issei looks directly into her eyes, something that scared her a lot. Issei. I don't do these things for any reward, I do it to defend my race, and that's it. He said turning around and starting to enter his cabin. Ali. The enemy is Rizavam. He said making the brown-haired man stop closing the door. Issei. Rizavam. He thought, clenching his fists. Then he opens the door seeing everyone made of wood. Issei. Rizavam live in Lucifer, is he behind all this? He asked seriously. Ali. Do you know him? He asked somewhat surprised. Issei. He found a way to control the monsters that come out of the portals 3 years ago. He said seriously. That shocked everyone present. Hiroka. That's impossible. She said scared. Arthur. Just one of those creatures can destroy an entire faction and you're telling us that Rizavam can control them? He asked nervously and scared. Issei. That's right, he found a way to control them through a liquid that he injected into them. He said seriously. Issei. Well, you convinced me. He said walking out. Lefei. Really? He asked happily. Issei. Yes, now each of you hold hands. He said confusing everyone. But they still did it. Issei. Volley touches my shoulder. He said seriously. At that the aforementioned touches his shoulder and they disappeared in a blur. Chapter 3. After Issei agreed to help, they teleported to the underworld, more specifically to the center of the city. Hiroka. What was that? She asked in astonishment. Issei. A technique I developed so that I can be where monsters are before they cause damage. He said seriously and without looking at her. Arthur. The energy you use must compensate for the magic. He said seriously. Issei. What I use is better than magic. He said seriously. Lefei. And what would be better than magic? She asked intrigued. Issei. You will see that in due time, well we have to go with Xerxes. He said looking at the surroundings and the people who were looking at him and murmuring. Demon 1. Isn't he the one who humiliated the Norse god Loki? He asked in surprise. Demon 2. According to what I've heard, the most powerful families here sought him out to join them. He said in amazement. Demon 3. Without a doubt if he were reincarnated he would be a supreme class demon or perhaps the strongest in history. He said with interest. That and other things were murmured by the demons who saw the chestnut tree pass by. Issei would just ignore them and continue on his way. All those in Volley's group were not paying attention. Yuku. You've become famous around here. He said with a smile. The chestnut tree wouldn't say anything and would just keep walking. Then Xerxes' office. Arideed was seen at his desk thinking with a serious face. Xerxes. I hope they find you, Issei. He thought seriously. But as if his words were heard by someone else. A demon entered agitated. Demon. Sir, there is news from the city. He said nervously. Xerxes. And what is it? He asked curiously. Demon. The human who humiliated the Norse god Loki is in the city. He said a little calmer. That left the Arideed speechless, but soon he smiled. Xerxes. Bring him, but be careful not to bother him or do anything stupid because you know what will happen. He said seriously looking at the demon. Demon. Why yes, whatever you say sir. It was the only thing he said before leaving. Xerxes. You're finally back, Issei. Arideed said happily. With Issei. He continued walking through the city with Volley's group. Until a group of guards approached them, drawing the attention of all the citizens. Guard 1. Mr. Issei, we ask you to accompany us. He said something nervous since he knew what the brown one was made of. Issei. Why? He asked coldly. Guard 2. Xerxes-sama sent us. He said nervously. Issei. Okay, let's go. He said with a sigh. Time skip. Volley's group is seen with Issei outside the red-haired Siskin's office. Volley. Well, we're leaving. He said leaving the place. Hiroka. Good luck Issei Naya. He said with a smile leaving the place like the others who remained silent. At that Issei opens the door seeing a Xerxes sleeping on his desk. The brown-haired man only raised his power a little, causing the Arideed to wake up suddenly. Xerxes. Who's there? He said very scared. Issei. I'm here now. He said seriously. Xerxes, I say is that you? He asked, still agitated. Issei. No, I'm your grandmother, of course it's me. He said something annoying. Zersich. Ah. Sorry, it all happened by surprise. He said more calmly. Issei. Well, explain the situation to me. He said seriously. Zersich. Well, Rizavim is planning to destroy everything. He said seriously. Issei. I already know that, what I want you to explain to me is why. He said seriously. Zersich. I don't know, but his attacks are more constant and this morning I discovered something. He said seriously. Issei. And what is it? Zersich. Plans to release the apocalyptic dragon, Trihexa. He said seriously. Issei. And who is it? He asked curiously. Zersich. He is a dragon god, stronger than Great Red and Office. He said seriously. Issei. I see, you better train a lot from now on. He said seriously. Zersich. And not only that, but we were informed that he is working with someone else. He said nervously. Issei. With whom? He asked somewhat intrigued. Zersich. I don't know, but we sent a group of 50 soldiers to investigate a week ago, but. Issei. But. Zersich. 2 days ago, someone came with a very badly injured arm and told us that when he felt its power, it was almost like yours. He said nervously. That statement surprised a brown-haired man a little, but he didn't show it. Zersich. Changing the subject, how have you been? He asked with a small smile. Issei. I've only been killing the monsters that appeared and I've also been training. He said seriously. Zersich. And why do you have silver eyes? He asked curiously. Issei. I realize that this state hides more things and that I don't completely control it, so I decided to stay like this until it becomes something natural. He said seriously. Zersich. I see, that state is amazing, your eyes are scary. He said something scared. Issei. It's still somewhat difficult for me to stay in this state. He said something frustrated. Zersich. And do you have a place to stay? He asked curiously. Issei. I've been staying in an abandoned cabin in a forest, it may not be much, but it's a roof. He said calmly. Zersich. I see, if you want you can stay at my parents' house. He said with a smile. Issei. Sure. He asked curiously. Zersich. Of course, my parents will be happy to see you as well as Milica's. He said with a smile. Issei. Speaking of which, how has Milica's been? He asked curiously. Zersich. He's been training a lot since you left, he's at a good level for being just a teenager. He said happily. Issei. I see, well I accept your offer. He said calmly. Zersich. Perfect, I'll personally take you, of course, if you don't mind. He said with a smile. Issei. It's okay, I don't see the problem. He said still calm. Zersich. Okay, let's go now, they're in for a big surprise. He said making a magic circle to transport himself to the outskirts of the Gremory mansion. Chapter 4. When they arrived they approached the doors of the enormous mansion, opening them and seeing the butlers and maids who resided there with a bow. But when they saw Issei they were very surprised. When I arrived at the room I found Venelana and Zudikas chatting. Zersich. Hello Odo-sama, Oka-sama. He said with a smile. Venelana. Hello son, how? It didn't end when he saw the chestnut tree. Zudikas. Issei. He asked very surprised as well as his wife. Issei. Yes. He said calmly. That's how they approach the newcomers. Venelana. It's been a while, Issei-kun. He said giving her a hug. Issei. Yes, some time has passed. He said calmly and separating from the hug. Zudikas. Yes, the other families have been looking for you to join them. He said with grace. Issei. Well, as long as they don't bother us, everything will be fine. He said seriously. At that moment the door opens revealing a 15-year-old boy. I don't know how old Milica's was in the anime, so in the first season he was 10, and now he's 15. Milica's. Ka-san don't you know where I left my. It didn't end when he saw Issei. Milica's. I is Issei, Issei ni. He shouted happily, running and hugging the brown-haired boy. Milica's. Issei ni, it's amazing that you're back. He said very happily, strongly destroying the chestnut tree. Issei. It's good to see you Milica's. He said with a small smile reciprocating the hug. That surprised those present, but they said nothing. Issei. I can feel that you have become very strong. He said still with his smile. Milica's. Yes, I have trained very hard to be as strong as you. He said, separating from the hug. Issei. I see, I'd like to have a little fight with you someday. He said calmly. Milica's. Of course, I'll be prepared for when that day comes. He said happily. Zersich. Well, Milica's, could you please escort him to his room? He asked with a smile as he noticed his son wanted to ask him many questions. Milikas. Sure, let's go Issei. He said grabbing Issei's arm and pulling him out of the room under the gaze of the current Lucifer and his parents. Zudikas. Yes, he has a great affection for her. He said with a smile. Venelana. She has become so attached to him that she considers him her brother. He said happily. Zersich. In my opinion, it went very quickly. He said the same as his parents. Zudikas. Still, he's not a bad person even with what he suffered as a child. I'm surprised he hasn't had traumas. He said with some sadness. Zersich. But we can't do anything, the damage is already done. He said the same as his father. Venelana. Yes, I would have liked to have met him before, that way I would have kept him away from the horrible family he had to live with. He said sadly. Zersich. Well, I have to go now, take care of him well. He said with a smile. Venelana. Take it for granted. She said more animatedly. Zersich. Okay, goodbye. He said making a magic circle to disappear into the. With Issei. This one was with Milikas chatting while they were still heading to Issei's room. Milikas. Issei, can I ask you a question? He asked seeing him. Issei. Question. He said calmly. Milikas. How strong were the monsters you faced these last 5 years? I asked somewhat nervously. Issei. Well, in the first year very weak monsters appeared, so much so that with one blow I would tear them to pieces, but at the beginning of the second year every day they appeared stronger, to the point that they left me no choice but to train to be stronger. He said something serious. But it was clear he was hiding something. Milikas noticed it but didn't give it much importance. Milikas. And that's why he has silver eyes? He asked curiously. Issei is still in that state. Issei. I achieved this state in perdition just before leaving. He said calmly. Milikas. And why is it in that state? He asked intrigued. Issei. I continue like this since I have the feeling that this state still hides something and to be sure I want to master it completely. He said something thoughtfully. Milikas. I see, well, we're here. He said standing in the doorway of one of the many rooms. When Milikas opened the door they could see that it was a very luxurious room and that it was quite large decorated with gold and many precious stones. Issei. I didn't expect this. He said something awkward. Milikas. Why do you say that? He asked curiously. Issei. This room is very luxurious, I never thought they would give me a room like this. He said still uncomfortable. Milikas. My grandparents consider you a son and they didn't want you to sleep in just any room. He said with a smile. Issei. I didn't expect that either, I see, that's good to know. He said with a small smile. Milikas. Well, you should rest, besides it's about time for dinner, in the closet there are clothes that will surely fit you, in a while I'll come to tell you if it's time for dinner. He said calmly. Issei. Of course. It was the only thing he said to enter the room and hear how the younger Rias closed the door. Issei. Like a son huh? He thought with a smile and then lay down on the giant bed in the room. Chapter 5. Issei was changing into his clothes which consisted of a black t-shirt with a black jacket, black pants and white tennis shoes with black details. While waiting, looking out the window and remembering what he experienced in his childhood, he suddenly remembers what Milikas said. Issei. This isn't so bad after all. He thought with a small smile. But then the door opens revealing the younger Rias. Milikas. Issei, dinner is ready. He said, looking at the brown-haired man who looked at the window. Issei, bien. That was the only thing he said before turning to Milikas and going to the large dining room that the mansion had. I'm Skip. You could see everyone eating at the big table. Zudikas. By the way Issei, Zersich called a few hours ago and said there will be a meeting of the 3 factions and said he would come tomorrow to pick you up. He said calmly. Issei. Okay. He said calmly. Venelana. By the way, Issei-kun, from now on you can call us parents, of course only if you want. He said with a smile. This surprised the brown-haired boy, but he managed to hide it. Issei. Seriously? He asked looking at her. Zudikas. Clear. He said with a smile. Issei. Well, I don't see the problem. He said calmly. Venelana. So, do you accept? He asked, starting to get happy. Issei. Of course, mother. He said looking at her with a smile a little bigger than he normally gave. That surprised everyone, but they were happy. Zudikas. That makes us very happy, son. He said with a smile. Issei. Me too, father. He said still with his smile. And so they were all through dinner time until it was time to sleep. Issei was in his bed sleeping, but then he started to move and squirm, the sign that he was having a nightmare. Issei's dream. This was on a battlefield. I was fighting with a guy whose face couldn't be seen clearly. The brown-haired man was giving his all in the exchange of blows, but the strange man still had the advantage. Until in a careless moment Issei receives a blow that made him crash to the ground. The brown-haired boy couldn't get up because for some reason he didn't know that blow hurt him. While that was happening the man was slowly approaching him. "You put up a good fight," he said, lifting him by the neck. "But this is as far as you go," he said with a smile that showed on his face that he still couldn't see clearly. At that the man makes an energy sword in his hand, piercing the chest of the brown-haired man. The sword is like Black Goku's Kai sword. Out of the dream. The brown-haired boy woke up suddenly with his eyes wide open and looking around, seeing that he was in the room they gave him. "Issei. What was that?" he thought, breathing heavily. But then he saw that he had his right hand on his chest. "Issei. It felt so real," he said, calming down a little. At that Issei lies down again to fall asleep instantly. In the morning. Issei was still asleep until the door opened, revealing Milika's. Issei wakes up, he said, shaking it. At that the brown-haired boy wakes up, revealing his silver eyes. Issei, breakfast is ready, he said, still moving it. "Issei, bien," he said, sitting on the edge of the bed holding his head as it started to hurt. "Are you okay?" he asked somewhat worriedly. "Issei. Yes, it's just dizziness," he said, standing up. "Well, you better go downstairs, breakfast is ready," he said, heading to the door. "Issei. I'll be right there," he said calmly. Good. It was the only thing he said to leave the room. Issei was left alone, but then he went into the bathroom to take a bath. While the brown-haired boy was bathing, he began to remember the dream he had the night before. And that he grabs his chest where in the dream the subject stuck the sword made of energy into him. "Issei. Why did it hurt? I'm not supposed to feel pain," he thought seriously. Time skip. The chestnut was having breakfast with the Gremory family. "Venelana. What's up, Issei-kun? This morning you were more serious than usual," the chestnut said, looking at Issei. "Issei. It's nothing," he said calmly. Venelana. "Well, if you say so," he said, not believing him completely. "Zudikus. Leaving that aside, Zersich will be arriving in a few hours, so what would you like to do?" Chapter 6. After leaving Milika's in his room, he went to the mansion's living room where he found the Gremory patriarchs chatting until they saw him. "Venelana. And how did it go?" he asked with a smile. "Issei. Malaka's got tired and became conscious," he said in his typical monotonous tone. "Zudikus. Well, what do you plan to do when all this is over?" That made the brown-haired boy think until he remembered the dream he had, and that made him tense. "Issei. Well, I don't know," he said, something nervous. "Venelana. Is something wrong?" he asked, seeing how nervous the one he considers his son was. To that the chestnut tree did not know how to respond. Until a magic circle formed on the ground and from there came Zersich. Hello, I see I'm interrupting something," he said with a smile. Zudikus. Not at all, and what brings you here? Zersich. Well, the faction meeting will start in a few minutes and I'm here to pick up Issei-kun, he said with a smile and looking at the aforementioned. Issei. Okay. It was the only thing he said to stand next to the Redeed. Venelana. Well, take care, he said with a warm smile. Zersich. Sure, goodbye, he said, forming a magic circle. While the brown-haired man said nothing, he just gave them a small smile and then disappeared into the magic circle. Upon arriving they saw the room where the allied factions had their last meeting and they also saw that everyone was there. The others were surprised but also happy when they saw the chestnut tree. They were the Citri and Gremory group. Ollie's team. The faction leaders including the Yakai leader with her daughter Kunu Anaden along with his Valkyrie Rossweisse. Michael. Wow, so it wasn't a lie, he said happily. Azazel. It's good to see you, boy, he said with his typical carefree attitude. At that moment, the leader of the Yakai approaches the brown-haired boy along with her daughter. Here I will make Kunu still a child like in the anime. Yasaka. Nice to meet you, I am Yasaka, leader of the Yakai faction, and she is my daughter Kunu, he said with a smile. Issei. I'm Issei, it's a pleasure, he said with his typical expressionless face. Zersich. Well, let's start with the meeting, he said something serious and received a nod from everyone. Issei no longer has silver eyes. After that the meeting went on normally, talking about the alliance, future projects and things that weren't important for the moment. Until it was time to talk about a particular topic. Azazel. Well, since that's settled, what do you know about the damn Rizavum? He asked seriously. Michael. Nothing so far, he hasn't made any move yet. Yasaka. We can't be too confident. If he hasn't done anything, he's planning something big. He said it would be the kitsune. Zersich. You must be right about that, this is not good. He said seriously. Auden. And what can we do if he attacks again? Zersich. We are currently weak on defense, and I couldn't tell you what we could do. He said with his hand on his chin thinking. But in that I feel Pelaplata decided to speak. Ali. And even if our defenses are at their maximum level, nothing could be done. He said seriously. Azazel. Why do you say that? Ali. That damned one can control the beasts that come from perdition. He said more seriously and surprising everyone present. Michael. It's a joke, right? The leader of the angels asked nervously. Yasaka. And how do you know that? She asked suspiciously. Ali. Issei told me when we explained the situation to him. He said making everyone look at the brown-haired man. Zersich. Is that true? He asked nervously. Issei. Unfortunately yes, it's true. Azazel. How long has it been? He asked seriously, something very uncommon in the. Issei. For 3 years, I've been looking for some clue that could lead me to his whereabouts, but I found nothing. He knows how to hide very well. He said seriously. That surprised everyone who listened even more. Yasaka. And what can we do? She asked somewhat nervously. Issei. Knowing how he is, he will surely send a monster to attack one of the factions, but I don't know which one. He said seriously. Ali. He will surely choose the one with the weakest defenses. The silver-haired man said. At that everyone sees Michael, who was a little nervous. Gabriel. It's true, with Rizavum's last attack our defenses went down greatly. He said with his eyes on the ground. Michael. Many angels died, and it pains me to admit it, but an attack of those things will destroy us completely. He said the same as his sister. Zersich. So what do you think if Issei-kun goes with you to take care of your faction for a while? He asked with a small smile, looking at the pair of angels who directed their gaze at the brown-haired boy. Issei. Damn, how dare you offer me? I'm not an object, although I was treated like one when I was a child, but hey, it's not so bad since this way I'll be able to see heaven. He thought that last thing, calming down a little. Gabriel. Really would you do it? She asked hopefully, seeing Issei. Issei. Well yes. He said, looking away. Michael. Thank you very much. He said happily and bowed slightly to the brown-haired boy. Issei. Yes, whatever you say. He said disinterestedly. Zersich. Well, I think this concludes the meeting. Azazel. Well yes, so I'm leaving. He said, disappearing into a magic circle along with Vali and his team. Yasaka. Us too, and Issei-kun. He said, drawing the attention of the aforementioned. Yasaka. I hope you meet again, so we can get to know each other better. She said with a radiant smile, but Issei didn't even flinch. At that the kitsune disappeared in a magic circle. Auden was also about to leave, but the place where they were was attacked, destroying everything. Gabriel could barely create a barrier to protect all those who still remained, but a cloud of dust was created that left those present without sight for several minutes. Chapter 7. When the dust cloud disappeared, Gabriel could be seen on the ground, very hurt and weakened. Once everyone recovered from the shock, they saw the state of the Seraphim, and everyone became worried, especially her brother who went to help her. Michael. Gabriel, don't worry, you'll be fine. He said, very worried. Gabriel. Brother. That was the only thing he said before falling unconscious, worrying his brother even more. Michael. Who was the bastard who did this? He shouted very angrily. Wow, an angel insulting people, you don't hear that every day, he said, someone unknown in the sky. Everyone fixed their eyes on the subject and were surprised to see that he could fly without wings. Auden. And who are you? He asked with authority. Oh right, sorry for my manners, I'm Poro, nice to meet you. Said the now identified Poro with a smile. Michael. And what do you want? Poro. You will know my true plan soon, but for now, I have come to check something out. He said, fixing his gaze on Issei, who became serious. Poro. You. Aiming for the chestnut. Poro. Have a fight with me. He said, going down to the ground. Issei. Why do you want me to fight you? Poro. Well, that's what I came to check. Issei. Check what exactly? Poro. You'll already know that. He said with a sinister smile. Poro. Well, if you're not going to start, I will. After saying that, he launched himself at the brown-haired man with monster speed and a direct blow to his face. But the brown-haired boy reacted quickly and narrowly avoided it, something that surprised him a little. Issei. Who is this guy? That punch almost hit me. he thought, watching as the black-haired man launched himself at him again, but unlike the previous attack, he stopped him with difficulty. Poro. So it was true. He thought, putting on a smile. Issei. What's wrong, aren't you going to show all your power? Poro. For now it's not necessary, for the moment, let's keep having fun. He said still with his smile. Issei. That means if I don't attack I won't be able to see how much power you have, so get ready. He said, getting into a fighting stance. Poro. That's what I've been waiting for. He said to imitate the action of the chestnut tree. And without further ado, both launched themselves at sonic speed, colliding their fists, causing a large crater. But it didn't end there, as Poro hit Issei in the stomach, sending him back many meters. Everyone present was very surprised by what they were witnessing. But what surprised them most is that the guy who came out of nowhere was giving the brown-haired man a fight. But what they didn't know is that this would go further. Ice. After protecting himself from the blow, he launched himself against the black-haired man and hit him in the face, sending him flying. He then threw many energy balls at him, producing many explosions. But when he stopped his attack he felt himself being propelled to the side by a blow to the face from Poro that sent him crashing into some mountains, destroying them upon contact. At that Issei gets up and with a burst of speed he lunged at the black-haired man, hitting him in the stomach, followed by a shower of blows that buried themselves deeper and deeper into the ground. When he finished his rain of blows he separated himself from the content with a jump and waited for the black man without lowering his guard. Issei. That guy still has energy to continue. He thought, becoming more serious. But in that. Poro. I. He gave a heart-rending scream as he left the apartment. Poro. Wow, you're stronger than I thought, but you still haven't used your full power. He said with a confident smile. Issei. And you just let yourself get hit. Poro. What do you think if we stop playing and go all out? Issei. That's what I was going to say. Poro. Okay, I'll start. At that point he begins to unleash a lot of power, surprising and terrifying those watching the fight. Poro. Aya. At that point it begins to glow a dark blue. Poro. Ai. When the light went out everyone was shocked by what they saw. But the most affected was Issei who was shocked. The Poro could be seen with a dark blue aura with white particles appearing and disappearing along with silver eyes that would traumatize many, as well as being accompanied by a terrifying smile and his hair slightly raised. Poro. What do you think? He said, still with his smile, raising his hands in the Black Goku style. Issei. How is it possible that you have that state? He said a little more recovered. Poro. That's the least of it, now it's your turn. He said with his arms crossed. Issei. Bien. Then he closes his eyes, emitting a blue glow that covers him. Issei. I. After that scream, the same thing happened as with Poro, with the only difference that his aura was clear. Poro. Wow, you are a box full of surprises, who would have thought that you could also access Ultra Instinct? He said the last thing with a deeper voice. Issei. Ultra Instinct? He asked confused. Poro. That's right, the name honors the abilities it gives, don't you think? He said something excited. Without a doubt, a battle without equal is about to begin. Chapter 8. Issei and Poro stared at each other. One had an evil smile, and the other had a cold penetrating gaze. None towards a single movement. Until the black-haired man launched himself at a speed greater than that of light and tried to punch the brunette in the face, but he dodged it and tried to do the same, but the black-haired man also dodged it. There was an exchange of very fast and precise blows until Issei yelled and threw a very strong blow that Poro dodged. But the blow was so strong that the air pressure it exerted destroyed a large part of the land. Poro tried to hit him, but the brunette dodged it and managed to land a punch in his face that sent him away a few meters, while Issei moved away in the air. The black-haired man launched himself at the brown-haired man at high speed. Another exchange of blows took place as they went down to the ground. When they reached the ground they collided their fists, which caused them to separate a few meters from each other. Poro. Haha, I've never had a battle like that before. Normally, everyone who fights me ends up dead after a few hits. He said with a smile. For his part, the brown-haired man said nothing, he just looked at the black-haired man in a cold and penetrating way. Poro. But what surprises me most is seeing another human with this power. That left those who heard it more than shocked. In front of them were two humans with unparalleled power. There was no doubt that the weaker race was much more than that. While the brown-haired man wasn't so surprised. If he could reach that level, he didn't see the problem with other humans being able to do so as well. But what surprised him was seeing someone like that so soon. Issei. Wow, that's incredible. No other human besides me has reached this level. Poro. This proves that the supernatural beings were wrong about us. Issei. At least we agree on something. Horo. Yes, but that won't change my goal. Issei. Then, let's keep fighting. Heading into a fighting stance. Horo. I was going to say the same thing. Launching himself against a brown-haired man with a blow, but he covered himself by putting his hands in an X, but that did not prevent him from knocking him down, even with his fist in his arms. They collided with a mountain but destroyed it on contact. At that Issei separates his arms, pushing Poro away with his action. But the black-haired man launched himself at the brown-haired man again, who did the same and their fists collided, making a huge explosion. Bro. I told you, the name of this state honors the abilities it gives. Issei. I still don't understand what you mean by that. Horo. Ultra Instinct, a mental state that allows the mind to separate from the body, giving unique abilities in the art of combat. Issei. So that's what the guy in the letter meant. Horo. In this state, the body moves of its own accord, relying on instincts that are much faster than reflexes. The bad thing is that not everyone can achieve it. Issei. And how did you get it? Horo. My sensei trained me since I was a child. He knew about the supernatural and was convinced that humans can become more powerful than any other race. He taught me what Ultra Instinct was and how to activate it. That last thing caught everyone's attention including Gabriel who is already awake. Horo. There are 2 ways to activate it. The first is self-deception, convincing yourself that you're in danger of dying, although that requires great mental capacity. And the second is being in a real life or death situation. He said with his 2 fingers raised. Horo. I was able to activate it with the second form since I didn't have the opportunity to be in a dangerous situation, but I can't say the same about you, since considering that you came out of the perdition, that means that you activated it while being in a life or death situation, or am I wrong? Issei. No, you weren't wrong, but what happened to your sensei? He asked intrigued. Horo. Do you really want to know? Well, I'll tell you, since my sensei's whereabouts have to do with my objective, and since everyone is going to die my sensei was called Issei. The first human to be able to use Ultra Instinct. At the name the black-haired man gave, the faction leaders tensed and a lump formed in their throats. That did not go unnoticed by anyone present. Issei. Issei, but how? He said shocked as well as his brothers who heard that name. Horo. He would be here if it weren't for the damn factions. They took advantage of his old age to attack him and send him back to the same place you came from. That left Issei even more shocked, who fixed his gaze on the faction leaders who tensed up at his gaze. Horo. And that was what made me have a goal which I am willing to fulfill at all costs, eliminate all existing life in the world, both human and supernatural, and thus create humans like us, equally talented and capable of using this power. At what the black-haired man said, everyone except Issei was terrified. Horo. But well, I have nothing to do here anymore. Returning to its base state. Issei. What? Horo. I just wanted to see how strong you were to verify something, but it seems I said something that surprised you, and being like this, it wouldn't be fun to fight. Rising. Horo. But let me warn you about one thing. Calling the attention of the chestnut tree which recovered a little. Horo. The next time we meet, we'll fight to see who is stronger than the other in a deathmatch. And once I kill you, I'll carry out my plan. Goodbye. He said, disappearing in a burst of speed. Everything went silent. At that Issei returns to his base state with his head down and said almost whispering. Issei. It can't be, I saw him die and I couldn't do anything. Clenching fists. Issei. It's impossible for him to still be alive after that. Chapter 9. 2 days have passed since Poro fought with Issei. And the aforementioned was quite thoughtful about what Poro said. Flashback. Horo. My sensei was called Issei, and he was the first human to use Ultra Instinct. Then flashback. At this moment the chestnut is in the room they gave him in the Gremory mansion. With what happened she had no desire to go to heaven with Gabriel who was worried and confused about Issei's condition. The Gremory family was worried to see the one they came to consider a son brother in that state. And the Haidu brothers were very confused and worried. Confused by what Poro said and worried about his brother. Returning to the chestnut tree. He was sitting on the floor of his room, leaning against a wall. Issei. But how could he have done it? That was the question that repeated itself in his head since he returned to the Gremory mansion. Human World Haidu residence. All the members of the club were still somewhat shocked by what happened 2 days ago. Rias. Well, since everyone is here we will count the contracts they made during the week. All but the 2 brothers gave a feeling. Rias. Let's count. Akeno made 11, Kaneko made 9, Asia made 7, Zenobia made 8, Kiba made 10, Gasper made 5, and finally Victor and Jessica made 6. The Rossweisse did not join Ria's entourage. Everyone saw the twins, but they didn't hear anything. Rias. Boys. No response received. Rias. Guys. Both chestnuts were scared. Jessica. W, what's wrong? Rias. Didn't you hear anything? Victor. Oh sorry, now you can count the contracts. Rias. I already counted them a while ago. She said something upset. Victor. Jessica. What? Surprised. Rias. Are you still thinking about what happened 2 days ago? Both gave a yes answer. Rias. Well, I know it was surprising, but it's over now. Jessica. It's not just that. The one we're worried about is Issei. Kaneko. What happened to him? Victor. Upon hearing the name of that Poro's teacher. Rias. Ah, right, who is it? Is Issei. Jessica. Issei. Rias. Yes, who is it? Jessica. Well, he is. He couldn't finish as a magic circle appeared. And from that circle came Grafiya. Rias. What are you doing here, Grafiya? Grafiya. Zersic-sama summons his entire entourage. He said in a monotonous tone. Rias. Really? According to what they told me, I couldn't return to the underworld. Neither I nor Sona. Grafiya. Miss Sona will also go along with her entourage. Rias. Okay, everyone come closer. The rest of the Redeed's entourage approach. Grafiya makes a magic circle and they appear in the Gremory mansion living room. But they realize that Sona's entourage and herself were already there. That's where Zersic and Serafal come in. Rias. Why didn't you call Oni-sama? Zersic. Well, we sent for them to tell them that from now on they can return to the underworld. Surprising everyone except Serafal. Sona. But why? Didn't our punishment mean that we shouldn't come back until Issei forgives us? Serafal. Yes, but he himself asked us to lift their punishment. Surprising everyone even more. Jessica. That means he forgave us. She asked hopefully. Zersic. I don't know, you should ask him. Rias. And where is it? Zersic. I'll go get it. Leaving the room. After a few minutes Zersic returned with Issei, who was serious as always, only the difference was that he had dark circles under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept in days. Issei. What do you want? He asked disinterestedly. Sona. Issei, what happened to you? Issei. Nothing, now tell me what you want. Rias. Have you forgiven us yet? Issei. No. He said dryly. That surprised everyone without exception. Rias. So why did you get our punishment lifted? Confused. Issei. By their teams, except for Victor and Jessica. He said seriously. Issei. So if you'll excuse me, I have to try to sleep. Maybe now I can. Heading for the door but. Victor? Until when? She asked with her eyes shadowed by her hair making Issei stop. Issei. How? Victor? How long will you continue with this? Issei. Speak clearly. Victor? How long will you keep up that damn attitude? Don't you see that you're hurting others? Rias, Sona, Jessica, our parents. Issei. They are your parents, not mine, so goodbye. He resumed his journey but was stopped once again. Victor? Sure, very rude with your power but without it, what are you? In a cold way. Jessica. Victor, that's enough. A little upset. Victor? Come on, tell me. Ignoring his sister. Issei. You're in no condition to say that. The only thing that makes you special and strong comes from a dead dragon. He said intimidatingly to his brother, but he did not let himself be lowered. Victor? You and I outside now. Approaching Issei, standing face to face with his brother. Rias. Victor, that's enough, don't make things worse. She said already scared. Issei. You should listen to your mistress, don't get hurt. Victor. No. I'm tired of you being like this with everyone and I'm not going back. Everyone was tense about what was happening, including the pair of mas who just limited themselves to watching what was happening. Issei. Okay, I'll wait for you in the courtyard. And I also hope you don't back down. Leaving the room, leaving everyone in a deathly silence. Jessica. Why did you do it? You know what he's capable of. You saw what he did to Kakabiel and Loki, what do you think he's going to do to you? She said very angrily. Her brother just ignored her and left the room without saying anything. Zersic. Rias, you better stop him before it's too late. Irideed was stunned, she couldn't believe what her pawn had done. It was crazy. And if Victor does something else stupid? Certain death. Running as fast as he could, he went to look for the elder Haidu along with the rest of his entourage. While Sona and her group said nothing. They didn't want to mess with Issei either. They were afraid that he would do something to them, especially Saji. Rias and her group headed to the courtyard as fast as they could. But when they arrived it was too late. Both chestnut trees were a few meters ahead of each other. Issei was calm and serious. And Victor was nervous, but he still wouldn't give up. Rias. Victor, stop, you don't have to do it, you know very well that you don't have a chance against him. running towards him, but collided with an invisible barrier that was put up by Issei. Issei. I'll give you one more chance, give up. Victor. I won't do it until I give you what you deserve. Activating his armor. Greg, mate, are you sure of what you're doing? He said from the mind of the older chestnut. Victor. I know I don't have a chance, but I can't leave things like this. Heading into a fighting stance. Issei. Okay, let's start. Victor listened and launched himself at Issei, who was just waiting for him. Chapter 10. Victor launched himself at his brother, who was just waiting for him. The older brown-haired boy tried to hit Issei with all his strength. But he dodged the blow, and using his momentum he kneed him in the stomach, causing him to spit out a lot of blood and sending him flying, crashing into the barrier. Issei. Give up already, you have no chance against me, you're just a useless waste of time. Victor. That's what you think. This one once again launched itself against Issei. But this time he received a punch in the face, shattering his helmet and burying him in the ground. Issei. They said I wouldn't last 5 minutes in the perdition, and seeing you now you wouldn't last 5 seconds. Victor. Shut up. He launches himself against a brown-haired boy once more, but it was useless, since Issei punched him in the face followed by one in the stomach, and so on for a few minutes, then followed with a blow to the jaw sending him flying, and finally he teleported above Victor, kicking him in the stomach, causing him to crash abruptly to the ground, causing a cloud of smoke. When the cloud dissipated, Victor was seen with his armor destroyed and badly wounded in the middle of a medium-sized crater. Issei. I warned you, I tried to give you a second chance and you blew it. Turning around and breaking down the barrier. Victor. This H has N not yet T has N ended. He said standing up with great difficulty. Victor. Come on, no I'm giving up running towards Issei, who was facing away. He tried to hit him, but to his surprise he went through it like a ghost and fell to the ground. Issei. What memories, right? Standing next to Victor and turning him over with his foot. Issei. Only this time, you're on the ground. He steps on his chest. Issei. And I'm on top of you. He said, seeing how it was difficult for him to breathe and how he could barely keep his eyes half open. Issei. Tell me, how did you feel at that moment? With a little smile. Issei. Triumphant. Arrogant. Like the strongest person in the world. Lifting him by the neck. Issei. The fight ended quickly, like now. Looking into the eyes of his brother who could only see him. Issei. Let me tell you that what you feel now does not compare to what I felt until I could no longer. Tightening his grip. Issei. And he was a child who was denied his childhood. Throwing it to the ground. The Gremory entourage ran towards Victor to help him. Jessica. Victor. Kneeling beside him. Victor. He is very sorgh. That was the last thing he said before he fell unconscious. Jessica. Asia, please heal him. The blonde listened and began to cure him. The chestnut turned around to leave, but. Jessica. How could you do this to him, Issei? She said furiously and with tears. Issei. I warned him and he didn't listen, if he's like this, it's because of his own fault, I just gave him what he wanted. Without seeing her. Jessica. We are brothers, Issei, how could you? At that the brown-haired boy looks at her out of the corner of his eye. Issei. To kill a monster, you must be more than that, and you created something more than a monster. Resuming his path, leaving the chestnut speechless. The chestnut passes by Xerxes' side and says to him. Issei. I'll go to the human world for a while. Xerxes. But, you can't use magic circles, how do you plan to go? Intrigued. Issei. I perfected my teleportation technique, now I can go wherever I want, as long as there is life where I go. Putting 2 fingers on his forehead and looking at the mass. Issei. It will be for a few months, but if you need me to go alone, increase your power as much as you can. After saying that he disappears in a blur, leaving the mass astonished. Human world. In a park with a small square in the middle, you can see how our protagonist appeared in a blur. It was nighttime, so he didn't have to worry about anyone seeing him, just like he didn't have to worry about money. So he began to walk without any apparent direction. The empty, dark streets of Kuo City were all I could see. And so it was for a few minutes until he heard some screams, things breaking and banging coming from a house. He stood there until he saw a guy throw someone out of the door. Type. Don't even think of ever showing up here again or consider yourself dead, you damn nuisance. After saying that, he closed the door forcefully. Then he saw who had thrown that guy out. And when you look closely, it seemed to be a boy of approximately 12 years of age. The brown-haired boy approaches the boy who hadn't moved from his place. As he approached, he could also see that he was bruised and had tears in his eyes. The boy didn't notice the presence of the brown-haired boy, he just cried in silence. Until he decided to speak. Issei. How lucky you are, kid. The boy was startled and turned around seeing the brunette with his typical expressionless face. Boy. Who are you? The boy asked nervously. Issei. No one important. Why are you like this? Asking already getting an idea. Boy. I don't want to talk about that. Lowering your head. Issei. Well, I'm not going to force you to talk and what are you planning to do? Boy. Huh. Issei. I could clearly hear that they didn't want you around, so what are you going to do? He asked a boy who was still on the ground. Boy. I don't know, this time I don't know what I can do. In a depressed tone. Issei. What is your name? Serious? Boy. My name is Sunji. Highly strung. Issei. Well, Sunji, if you want you can come with me, after all I guess you have nothing left to lose, right? The one already identified as Sunji remained silent for a few seconds until. Sunji. Okay, I'll go with you, but what do we do now? He asked nervously. Issei. The only thing left for us is to stay in a hotel since I don't have a house here. Sunji. You Austin doesn't live here. Issei. I used to live, but for some reason I had to leave, I just came back today and I couldn't find a place. Sunji. I see, but do you have money? Issei. Don't worry about that, well, let's go now. He said walking but this time being followed by Sunji. After searching for an hour they were able to find a hotel to stay that night. And that's what they did, they stayed to sleep. But in the chestnut tree he had the same dream he had when he returned. At first he thought it was just a nightmare. But after a few minutes he deduced that this dream was something more than just that. He thought it was a premonition. But I dismissed the idea, he couldn't have premonitions. He didn't give it much thought and fell asleep, but this time, without nightmares. Chapter 11. The next day. The brown-haired boy was sitting on the hotel bed while the boy he picked up was still asleep. He remembered the dream in which he died. And analyzing it better, the voice was like Poro's. He didn't give it any more thought and turned his gaze to the boy from last night called Sunji. He doesn't know why, but when he sees the boy on the ground, he felt a lot of empathy towards him. And there was already an idea of what happened to him. But the boy had to say it himself. For a moment he thought about training him. But I would have to tell him about the supernatural and I didn't know if he would accept either. But I would think about that more calmly. Now I had to wake the boy up and give him something to eat. Issei. Hey Brad, wake up. He said raising his voice, suddenly waking up the younger brown-haired boy. Sunji. What happened? Where am I? Confused and nervous. Issei. Get up now, kid. I'll give you something to eat. I'll see you outside in 2 minutes. Leaving the room. Sunji stood there not knowing what was happening. But he immediately remembered how that guy picked him up. So he quickly got up, put on his shoes and left the room and saw Issei waiting for him in the hallway. Issei. Okay, now let's eat something, come quickly or I'll leave you without food. Leaving being followed by Sunji. They left the hotel while remaining silent. Sunji. Aren't hotels supposed to give you breakfast too? Issei. I already asked and this one doesn't provide that, that's why we'll go to a cafeteria. Serious? Sunji. Excuse me, could you tell me your name? Curious and nervous. Issei. I'm Issei. Sunji. It's okay Mr. Issei. Issei. What did I just tell you? Well, it doesn't matter anymore, let's go quickly. The rest of the journey was in silence. For Sunji it was uncomfortable. But for Issei. He was hungry and just sat looking for a place to eat. So the minutes passed and they found nothing. Sunji. Apparently we are in an area where there are no restaurants. Issei. Then you have to keep walking until you reach an area where there is. That was the last thing he said. They kept looking and looking. Until they found a restaurant. They came in and saw that it was something simple. But there were still a lot of people there. They didn't give it much importance and went to sit down. They waited a few seconds and a waitress approached. Waitress. Welcome, what would you like? But a friendly smile. Sunji. Please give me tortilla with rice. But the same smile. Issei. Just give me a coffee. Serious? Waitress. Okay, I'll bring them to you in a moment. Leaving both chestnuts in silence. Sunji, Senor Issei. Issei. What? Sunji. How old is he? Curious. Issei. 22 years old, and how old are you? Sunji. I'm 12 years old. Issei. It shows. Once again they were silent for a few minutes. Issei. I know you said you didn't want to talk about it, but why did they kick you out of your house yesterday? The smaller chestnut tree remained silent for a few minutes. Sunji. Promise not to make a scene. But head down. Issei. Of course. Paying attention. Sunji. Well you see, that wasn't my house. It belonged to my stepfather, my mother, my older sister, and I moved in with him after my father died in a plane crash when I was 5. A week after the accident my mom brought that guy over, turns out he was cheating on my dad. Issei. I'm sorry to remind you of that, but what does that have to do with how they'll vote there? Sanji. Well, before my dad died, my mom and my sister treated me badly since I was born. My mom breastfed me because she felt obligated, but it was only for 6 months. When she stopped doing it, my dad gave me a bottle when I turned 4. My mother mistreated me for not being like my sister. Issei. And what was your sister like? Sanji. She was very intelligent and had many friends, but as time went by she became arrogant and she also began to mistreat me and hit me. She took my friends away from me and made them do it too. If it weren't for my father, maybe I would have died. After all, he was the only one who loved me after my dad died and we moved in with that guy. The physical and psychological abuse increased and my stepfather also participated. There were times when they beat me and left me unconscious for days. Issei. Maybe he. And how did you feel when you woke up? Sanji. Well, it was as if nothing had happened, as if I had never been hit. In fact, I felt much better. Issei. And for how many days did you remain unconscious? Sanji. 2 to 3 days, although there was one time when I was beaten so much that I didn't wake up for a week until last night when that guy came back drunk, hit me, and threw me out from there. Issei. So that means it's the same. Then the waitress arrives with what they ordered and puts it on the table. Waitress. Ready, I hope you enjoy it. Bowing and leaving. Issei. You really had a nightmare life. Sanji. Yes, no matter how hard I tried, I never achieved anything. The one who took everything was my sister. Starting to eat. Issei. And how old is your sister? Sanji. Well, she just turned 17 and she still acts like a child. Issei. They spoiled her since she was a child and they probably still do. It's obvious that she behaves like a child. Taking a sip of his coffee. Issei. But, I still understand what you went through since I went through something similar. The smaller chestnut tree stopped eating. Issei. I think I talk too much. Sanji. What do you mean something similar happened to you? Serious and staring at Issei. Issei. That doesn't matter now. Sanji. I told him about myself and it would be only fair if you did too. He said seriously. The chestnut saw that the miner looked at him analytically. Issei. This boy is very intelligent, more than it seems. Well, I'll tell you, but don't call attention to yourself or make a fuss about what you hear, okay? Sanji. I promise I won't do anything. Smiling. Issei. This will be long. Well, do you believe in the supernatural? Sanji. Supernatural? No, but what does that have to do with anything? Thinking I was pulling his leg. Issei. That has a lot to do with it, since that issue was the cause of what happened. And so the brunette proceeded to tell him his entire life. From the supernatural, to how he met Rias and Sona, the change in his siblings, the physical and psychological abuse, about the perdition, his life there, how he emerged stronger, how he met the faction leaders, everything up until now. The boy began to believe him less and less, but he had to admit it, the story was sad. When he finished telling them, they remained silent. Sanji. I must admit that what you told me about your childhood was sad, but if you want me to believe the rest you will have to prove it. Seriously? The brown-haired boy thought for a few seconds. Issei. Okay, finish eating and I'll show you. The smaller chestnut tree listened and ate as quickly as it could. When they finished the chestnut, he paid and went to a nearby alley, but not before making sure that the place was not too crowded. Issei, Tomomi Mono. Reaching out. Sanji, not very confident, took the hand. The brown-haired boy put 2 fingers on his forehead and teleported to the underworld. Chapter 12. The boy of just 12 was shocked as they appeared on a mountain large enough to show the city of the underworld. He thought it was another place in the human world and couldn't believe what he saw. But he knew it was real for 2 things. 1. Because the color of the sky was not normal, just like the shape of that city was strange, and 2. Because out of nowhere the older chestnut tree made them appear there out of nowhere just by touching his forehead with his fingers. Issei. And now? Seeing the boy next to him. Sanji said nothing, still shocked by what he saw. A few minutes passed and the boy came out of his trance. He turned around and saw that Issei was sitting on a rock. Issei. Until you finally leave your world I was about to hit you. He said it somewhat annoyed. Sanji. Sorry, but I couldn't help it, this is hard to process. A little nervous to see Issei upset. Issei. Well, since you saw what you had to see, we should go. Rising from the rock. Sanji. What? But we can't, this place is amazing, I need to explore that city. About to go, but was stopped by the chestnut. Issei. You can't go. Sanji. Huh. But don't you see that we're in hell? It's a place that everyone has wanted to see at some point in their lives, why can't we explore? Besides, I want to see what demons look like. Issei. That's why I won't let you go. If the demons see a human in their city, the most arrogant ones will most likely kill you, and you won't be able to do anything. Serious? Sanji. And how do you know? Something annoying. Issei. I told you, didn't I? I already know the factions, including the demonic one. I know how arrogant and cruel they can be. More serious. The smaller chestnut tree saw the city. Sanji. And there is no way I can go? He asked, still looking at the city. Issei. Well, you would need to be a reincarnated demon. The smaller chestnut lowered his head. Nobody would want to reincarnate him. Issei, Piro. The boy stared at the older man at his side. Issei. You could also have powers to defend yourself from those who would try to fight you. He said seriously and looking back. Sanji. Then. Standing in front of Issei and bowing. Sanji. Please tell me how to get the power you have. There was an awkward silence for a few seconds. Issei. Are you asking me how I got this power just to go explore the city of the underworld? He laughed lightly. Issei. Really, just for that? I feel like it's for something else, so tell me what else do you want it for? Seeing the smaller chestnut tree which remained silent for a few seconds. Sanji. Well, I don't know if I should tell him. Issei. Tell me if you think I'm going to laugh, rest assured that I won't. Looking the boy in the eyes. Sanji. Well, the other reason why I want those powers is because I want to be like you. That statement left the major in front of him confused. Issei. Explain yourself better. Sanji. I want to be like you, to break my limits. When you told me how you had to survive in that strange dimension to fight with those monsters at such a young age, how despite what you lived with your family, you did not give up and continued fighting to fulfill that promise that is so important to you, made me want to be like you. I no longer want to continue being the weak child that everyone can hit whenever they want. Now I no longer want to be the outcast who could not do anything good, not even for himself. He started to shed tears while Issei just watched. Sanji. I don't want to be weak anymore. I don't want to be weak anymore. He fell to his knees under the brown-haired man's gaze. Sanji. So please, Mr. Issei, entertain me. And once again there was silence. The brown-haired man only saw how the miner in front of him begged him to train him. Issei was thoughtful for a few seconds. If that boy was willing to give it his all to be equal to or stronger than him, maybe it's worth it. But once again I had to confirm it. Well. Issei. You have to be aware that this isn't that easy. I had to go through hell to get this power, so if you want to be the same, you'll have to go through the same. Even if I can't send you to that dimension, I myself will make you go through that hell, and even then you'll have to give everything you have to face it and sell it, no matter how impossible it may seem. But first tell me. He approaches Sanji a little, who was still kneeling. Issei. Are you committed? He asked a boy in front of him who remained silent for a few seconds. Sanji, see. He said in an almost audible whisper. Issei. I'll ask once more, are you committed to surpassing your limits? At that the miner stops and looks the brown-haired boy in the eyes with a look full of determination. Sanji. Yes, I promise to push my limits and not take a step back. His tone of voice was firm and full of determination. Issei. Let's see how long you last. Okay, if that's the case, Sanji, I'll train you, and I hope that determination you have lasts until the end, because the hell I'll put you through will make you want to die. He said seriously while the boy is excited. Sanji. I won't let you down, Mr. Issei. Closing his fist. Sanji. Because no matter how many bones I break or how many times I have to face death, I'm not going to give up. But the smile. Elsewhere. The black-haired man can be seen sitting at a table reading a book in what appeared to be a library. It was none other than Poro, who was reading a book of spells. Poro. I thought that old man was lying, but who would say he's right? Learning a spell or two is useful after all. Reading a specific page that had a spell that was quite interesting in his opinion. Poro. So my friend can't feel pain, huh? Well, let's see if this makes us more even, haha. He thought, laughing as he read a page titled Reversal. Chapter 13. The next day. Issei and Sanji were on top of a mountain, and from there they could clearly see that it was just dawning. Sanji. Yawning sensei, is it necessary to get up so early? It's only going to be 5 a.m. He said, blinking slowly. Issei. That's the first thing you have to master, making your body fully functional, with few hours of rest is essential for training. Staring at the miner, who became somewhat nervous. Sanji. Oh, okay, and what will you teach me today? Issei. First of all, let's strengthen your body as much as possible. Sanji. So it will be basic exercises, like push-ups, sit-ups, squats, etc. Right. Issei. That's right. But it won't be the most common, so I want you to do 300 of each of the exercises you mentioned, and then run 100 laps around the mountain and up it. The younger chestnut tree went blank when he heard what he had to do. Sunji. It's a J joke, right? Quite nervous. Issei. Do you see me laughing? Looking sharply at the boy, who had no choice but to do what Issei asked. Throughout the day, the miner was pushing his body to its limits. There were times when he was about to give up. But Issei reminded him of what he had promised, and every time he did, he voluntarily started the exercise from scratch. While Issei watched his disciple struggle like that on his first day. Time skip. It was already 6 in the afternoon, and Sunji was climbing with great difficulty the mountain where Issei was meditating. When he finally reached the abyss, he collapsed on his back on the ground while breathing heavily face up. Issei. You're done. Without seeing it. Sunji ha see. Issei. Okay. Let's go eat something. Standing up and addressing the miner. Issei. Get up. Sunji. And no see can't move. Issei. I'll say it one more time, get up. Staring into Sunji's eyes, he stood up with difficulty, intimidated. Issei. Okay, now come with me. Starting to descend the mountain. Issei. Hurry up or I'll leave you without food. The youngest, upon hearing this, with all the strength he had left, began to go down the mountain again. Once under the mountain completely, it collapsed again while the major watched. Issei. Okay, now let's go to the city. Sunji. I see can't move. He said as he tried to stand up. Issei. I told you I was going to put you through hell. So stop complaining and let's go get something to eat in the city, since it'll be the last time you're doing it there. The younger chestnut tree was confused upon hearing this, but still with all his willpower he stood up and staggering followed the older chestnut tree. When arriving in the city, people saw both of them in two ways. They saw Issei with some annoyance and they murmured about having a miner in those conditions. While Sunji was seen with some pity. The older one just ignored them, while the younger one was very nervous since he wasn't used to being looked at like that. Sunji. Sensei. Issei. What do you want? Sunji. Why you don't affect what they tell you? Issei. Are we there? Sunji. Huh. Well, Sekiryuutei tell me how to do it. He said, speeding up his steps with difficulty to keep up with the older brown-haired boy. Issei. No. Sunji. Why not? Issei. Why don't I care? Sunji. QK. Issei. Are you upset? Sunji. S. Issei. Okay, I don't care. The youngest looked at the oldest a little annoyed. Issei. What? Did you bother me? Sunji. SC. Issei. Sigh, that's the problem. Sunji looks at him with doubt. Issei. You let those words reach you in life, there will always be people who speak badly of you, whether when you are there or behind your back, you simply have to ignore them until they no longer affect you. The miner heard that surprised. Sunji. Lo in intenter. He said with a smile. Elsewhere. The chestnut can be seen in a hospital bed waking up with many wounds. Victor. What happened? The natty remembers the beating his younger brother gave him. But he is interrupted because the door opened, revealing his twin sister. Jessica. Victor. He said, going quickly towards the aforementioned to hug him. Victor. Jessica, you hurt me. Jessica. Sorry, and how do you feel? Victor. Not good at all. But the door is once again opened, revealing the Gremory group and Citri. Rias. Victor, are you okay? Victor. Yes, not being able to move is considered good. At that moment a green gem appears on the chestnut's left hand. Greg. And he held back a lot. It's ironic that he left you on the ground like that when you guys did it in worse ways. He said something annoyed when he remembered that. That made the twins and the heiresses of both families sad. Isa's son. It was already night. This and Sunji were in a cave in the same forest where the mountain was located. While Sunji slept soundly on the ground, Issei watched the night sky from the entrance of the cave. But he turns around to see that the boy was fast asleep. Issei. He won't wake up until tomorrow. I'll go for a walk. Standing up and starting to walk through the woods. He walked for a while, but without realizing it, he ended up in the same place where they threw him into that hell. He saw that the surrounding trees were more dry. The brown-haired boy stood there for a few minutes, while for the first time his expression changed, but this one was one of melancholy. Issei. If only I hadn't met her. He murmured in a cold and melancholic manner at the same time. It was at that moment that the person I least wanted to see appeared in a magic circle. Issei, I knew you'd be here. He said in a calm voice. Issei. What do you want here, Gremory? Bringing out his killer instinct, something that intimidated the Reteed. But she held back. Rias. I came to clarify some things, Issei. Getting more serious. The brown-haired boy just clenched his fists. Issei. You better stop wasting time and go. I'm not in the mood to see anyone, especially you or your friend. He raised his voice a little. Rias. You left your brother very badly injured. Issei. Dog. Rias. The doctor said that he won't be able to move for 3 days. Issei. Thank you for holding back and not taking away the sensitivity in your entire body, although it would be doing you a favor. Remembering the beating he gave his older brother. Rias. Issei, I know we hurt you a lot. But that's behind us now. I don't understand why you can't get over it. Issei. Would you do it? Rias. Yes, I would. Because I'll be maturing. Issei. Grow up, you say. What do you know about that? Rias. More than you. That you can't let go of what's already happened. Issei. It's easier said than done, but why do I bother to tell you, if nothing has been killed for you, since you were a child, you have lacked nothing. Rias. For your information, I've also lost important things. Issei. I've already seen the rating game recording of your engagement. And the freedom to marry whomever you want hasn't been denied to you since then either, and it was your servants who worked hard to get you out of your engagement while you just stood there watching. Rias. That was your duty, remembering the oath of loyalty you made when I reincarnated you. Besides, I also fought to free myself from my commitment while you did nothing to mature and forget the bad things that happened to you. Victor is right. You only hurt people who try to correct their mistakes. The brown-haired boy looked at him and said. Issei. And you still don't understand. That left the Retreat confused. Rias. What are you talking about? Issei. Those weren't just bad things, it was a bucking hell. Remembering the beatings, insults, humiliation by her family and both heiresses. Issei. You don't know what it's like to be humiliated, beaten, insulted by your family and friends. You don't know how it feels that despite having other qualities every day is the same. You don't know what it's like to lose your best friend because of your brothers. You don't know what it's like to kill yourself studying every night so that your parents feel proud of you, and yet it still remains the same. You don't know what it's like to no longer feel anything for the brutal beatings that you received routinely. His eyes changed to a silver color, while his gaze and tone of voice only reflected hatred, resentment and contempt towards the Retreat as he clenched his fists to the point that blood came out of his palm. Issei. You don't know what it's like to see the only person who gave you love die. You don't know what it's like to break your back training day after day, breaking your bones in the process just to be able to live one more day. You don't know what it's like for a child to lose everything just to meet a girl in the park. The Retreat just remained silent. Every word that came out of the chestnut's mouth only made him feel worse. More so with the tone in which he said it, as well as the look he gave her. He remembered that happy, innocent, kind child, to whom he always gave a sincere smile full of happiness when he saw her. To the little boy he was before revealing the supernatural to him and his family with his friend. And now she was seeing the man he had become because of her and all those who had hurt him along with her. That serious, cold, calculating and powerful man who faced death on hundreds of occasions. The man who at this moment gave him a look full of hatred and contempt. The brunette left the place, leaving the Retreat crying for a few minutes. He left there, since that place only reminded him of how that child became the man he is now. Chapter 14 Preview. The next morning. Issei and Sunji were training. Or well, Sunji did. While Issei supervised him. The miner was doing push-ups until. Crack. The sound was heard coming from Sunji's arms and he couldn't take it anymore and fell to the ground. Sunji. W that? She said in a weak and somewhat worried manner. Issei. I forgot to tell you that your bones will make those strange sounds when you exercise more than the human body is used to. Sunji. Why you said it like nothing. Something annoying. Issei. That's a good thing. It means the training is working. I'm even surprised that it happened on the second day. Sunji. How long did it take? Curious. Issei. A week and a half, and for this to happen to you now means that your potential is much greater than mine. The miner was surprised by what his sensei said. Sunji, in serio. Issei. Yes, try harder and in no time you'll be able to destroy a large part of this forest with one blow. The miner was excited. Issei. Now start again. Sunji didn't care and started doing the exercises. He didn't mind the pain. In order to achieve the power his sensei said he would put all his willpower into it. Time skip. It was already 5:30 p.m. and both chestnut trees were still on the mountain. Issei. You finished half an hour earlier than yesterday. Sunji didn't say anything as he was very tired. Issei. I would tell you to get up to go eat, but I think this time I let you rest a little longer. The miner, upon hearing that, remembered what Issei told him. That despite having broken arms, he kept getting up. So without saying anything, with great difficulty he got up. Something that took Issei by surprise. Sunji. And no, let's go. With a weak smile. Chapter 14. The next morning. Sunji and Issei were training on the same mountain. Or well. The one training was Sunji. While Issei supervised him. Everything was going normally until. Crack. A sound was heard coming from Sunji's arms and he couldn't take it anymore and fell to the ground. Sunji. W that? He said in a weak and somewhat scared manner. Issei. I forgot to tell you that your bones will make those strange sounds when you exercise more than the human body is used to. Sunji. Why you said it as if nothing. Something annoying. Issei. That's a good thing. It means the training is working. In fact, I'm surprised that it happens on the second day. Serious? Sunji. How long did it take? Curious. Issei. A week and a half, and for this to happen to you now means that your potential is much greater than mine. The miner was surprised by what his sensei said. Sunji, in serio. Issei. Yes, try harder and in no time you'll be able to destroy a large part of this forest with one blow. The miner was excited. Issei. Now start again. Sunji didn't care and started doing the exercises. He didn't mind the pain. In order to achieve the power his sensei said he would put all his willpower into it. Time skip. It was already 5:30 p.m. and both chestnut trees were still on the mountain. Issei. You finished half an hour earlier than yesterday. Sunji didn't say anything as he was very tired. Issei. I would tell you to get up to go eat, but I think this time I'll let you rest a little longer. The miner, upon hearing that, remembered what Issei told him. That despite having broken arms, he kept getting up. So without saying anything, with great difficulty he got up. Something that took Issei by surprise. Sunji. And no, let's go. With a weak smile. As he struggled down the mountain. The chestnut tree was a little surprised by what his disciple did. After a few seconds he gave a small smile and stood up. Issei. Well, if that's what you want. Jumping to get down. A few minutes later. Issei was walking towards the cave where they were staying while carrying Sunji on his shoulder. Issei. This guy is amazing, maybe I've surpassed the power I had when I was 15. Arriving at the cave and laying the miner on the ground. Issei. Well, he won't wake up in a few hours. Putting 2 fingers on his forehead and teleporting to the outskirts of the Gremory mansion. Upon entering, he was greeted by maids and butlers who were surprised to see him. The brown-haired boy went to the living room without saying anything, finding a Venezuelan and Zuticus chatting while having a few glasses of wine. The two were happy to see him and approached him. Venelana. Hello, son. Hugging him. Issei. Hello, mother. He said something uncomfortable since he wasn't used to calling her that. The chestnut only laughed softly. Zuticus. What happened? Zersich told us you'd be gone for a few months. Intrigued. Issei. Okay. I came to say it won't be for a few months. Venelana. Then. Issei. I'll be gone for a few more years. Leaving the elders surprised. Zuticus. Can we know the reason? Venelana. Yes, why are you leaving? Something sad. Issei. Well, I'm training a boy. Leaving the older ones even more surprised. Zuticus. What guy? Something serious. Issei. His name is Sunji. He is 12 years old. Venelana. And what did you see in that boy to train him? Because the fact that you train someone is quite strange. She said the same as her husband. Issei. That boy has something special, he has much greater potential than me, I'm even starting to think that he could surpass me if he wanted to. Zuticus and Venelana were speechless upon hearing that the boy Issei mentioned could reach an exaggeratedly high power. Venelana. Are you sure? A little nervous. Issei. Yes. His determination is incredible and unwavering. Based on what he's shown so far. Zuticus. Well. I hope it's not too many years. Issei. Calm down. From what he showed, he'll reach incredible power in no time. Venelana. Okay. If that's what you want, take good care of that boy and I hope he brings him back when you're done. Hugging him again with a smile. Issei. I'll bring him so you can meet him. Also tell Zersich and Milikas. Putting 2 fingers on his forehead. Zuticus. Count on it, son. He said with a smile. Issei. Okay, see you soon. Disappearing from the room. When he appeared in the cave he saw that the miner was waking up. Issei. But I was only gone for a few minutes. Seeing that Sunji was getting up with difficulty. Sunji. Oh, my whole body hurts a lot. He said in pain. Issei. Boy, I have something to tell you. Getting Sunji's attention. Sunji, see sensei. Issei. Since I saw that in just 2 days your bones sounded like that you will have to learn to survive in these types of places. He said more seriously than usual. Sunji. Huh? What are you saying? Will you leave me here? Surprised. Issei. That's right. I told you that Tenta would put you through hell even if this isn't the doom, it's clear that you'll have to survive for the wild animals. Sanji. Yes, I'm aware of what you said. But I have nothing to defend myself with, just as I'll have to train the same way until I break my limits like you did with the constant attacks from the animals. It will be almost impossible for me to survive. Issei. You said it. It'll be almost impossible, we can depend on that small percentage. Looking the child in the eyes. Sanji. Oh okay. But I have nothing to defend myself with. Issei. Wait for me here. I'll be right back. Flying out towards the city. A few minutes passed and Issei returned, but with something in his hand. Issei. Now you won't be able to complain. Giving him what appeared to be a knife. Sanji. Just a knife. Issei. And you'll only use it when you really need it. You can't always depend on weapons. Sanji. Well, it still seems unfair to me. I thought it would be a sword or something. Issei. Wild animals aren't as dangerous as the beasts from that other dimension. So that's enough for this place. Leaving the cave followed by Sanji. Issei. You remember the training, right? It's not just physical training. Sanji. Yes, I remember. But how will you know when it's over? Issei. I can sense when someone's power rises. When this part of the training is completed, I will come and teach you how to use your power more efficiently. The miner nodded his head. Issei. Remember. Try hard and you'll finish faster than you think. Turning around. Sanji. Yes, I won't let you down, sensei. He said full of determination. Issei. That's what I hope. It was the last thing he said before taking off into the sky. Chapter 15. Season finale. Time skip. 10 months have passed since Issei left Sanji in the forest. During that time, Sanji had to break his limits more abruptly than Issei, since wild animals were going to attack him at any moment. As a result, he was already on the verge of dying on several occasions. If it weren't for the knife Issei gave him, he would have been dead since the first time he faced a brown bear. Like tigers, lions and pumas. Although he wondered why there were pumas there since they live in South America. But he didn't give it much importance since at that moment he was thinking about his survival. There were times when he thought his sensei made a mistake by leaving him there. But then thinking about the cost of training and remembering what he heard from that other dimension. This was definitely better and easier. But not only did he do physical training, he also drew on the same energy that Issei had. Only it was unstable. There were even times when he almost died for not mastering it and using it properly. Another problem he had was that he could feel pain, so training was much more difficult for him than for Issei. But it was definitely worth it. Because by the middle of the 9th month, all of his senses were on edge, as were his strength, speed, endurance, and reflexes. And I would never forget how it happened. Flashback. Sanji was sharpening his knife which looked quite worn. I was on top of a tree branch. Sanji. I wonder what Issei-sensei is doing. He asked himself as he looked at his knife. After that, jumped down and head to the cave where he was sleeping. But then he heard something heading towards him. But by the time he turned around it was too late, as a bear had already knocked him down and started biting him all over. Sanji. Aiya. He screamed in pain as he felt his skin being penetrated by the bear's fangs. The chestnut tree tried to cover itself with all its might. But the bear didn't give him a chance to do anything as he was shaking him. Thus, the bear was massacring Sanji for a few more minutes and then threw the boy towards a tree and collided with it. Until the smaller chestnut tree stopped moving to pretend to be dead. The bear, seeing that, was about to leave. But Sanji clenched his teeth tightly and his fist very hard, making a noise. The bear heard this and realized that Sanji was still alive. So he attacked once again. But the bear received a blow that moved him away and left him stunned. Sanji stood up. This one looked pretty furious. But at the same time, he was surprised because after that last attack, he felt very strange. He felt like something in his body had broken and that made him see it in slow motion when the bear was about to attack him. But he didn't give it much importance since he was looking at the bear with great anger. For the bear, he recovered and without waiting for anything he went to attack Sanji once again. The aforementioned once again saw how the bear moved very slowly. He just waited for it to be close and when he was a few centimeters away from swiping at it, he received a blow to the chin that sent him flying, crashing into several trees. The chestnut tree went to his cave at a speed that impressed him. Then flashback. That's how Sanji, like Issei the first time he did that, was quite confused as to why the hell he became so strong in such a short time. On Issei's part, during all that time he was watching the miner in his training. To say I was amazed was an understatement. I was quite surprised to see how he suddenly gained that strength to knock out a very large bear. So he decided it was time to personally train the miner and help him control his abilities, and especially his energy. Present. Sanji was watching the horizon from the mountain where he trained with Issei. Issei. Looks like you're done. The miner quickly turned around to find Issei, who looked at him analytically as he carried a bag. His clothes were torn, not to mention that he was only wearing his pants, which were ripped, revealing his well-worked and toned torso, which had several scars. Sanji. Sensei. Where have you been all this time? The boy asked curiously. Issei. That's not important here, in the bag there are clothes and soap for you to bathe in the lake. Throwing the bag to him, which was caught by Sanji. Sanji. Thank you very much, sensei. He said with a smile and jumped down the mountain to then quickly go to the lake where he was bathing. A few minutes later. The miner was in front of Issei with the clothes he gave him already on. Sanji. Sensei, what will we do now? He asked quite curiously. Issei. I've noticed that your energy isn't stable. So we'll start stabilizing it a bit. Serious? Sanji. Yes. But sensei, can we go to the city? Issei. And for what? Sanji. Well, I want to go eat something there since in all this time I couldn't eat anything other than the meat of the animals I killed. Remembering how I ate bear meat. Issei. Well. I guess you earned it, so hold on to me. The miner touched Issei's shoulder, who put 2 fingers on his forehead, and they disappeared from the place. Elsewhere. The black-haired man was in a laboratory seeing a scientist working on something. But in that a subject enters. Subject. Horo-sama, we have news. He said, something alarmed. Horo. And what would be for you to enter in that way? Something annoying. Subject. That Issei has a disciple, one of our weakest men was watching him and he became too strong. Leaving the jet black somewhat surprised. Horo. So you didn't waste your time, huh? He thought with a small smile that went unnoticed. Horo. Okay. You can go now. He said authoritatively and then saw the subject leave. Horo. Hey. When will that thing be ready? Scientist. We still haven't found a way to increase its power without causing any kind of damage. I think it will take a little more than 2 years. Horo. Well, that gives time to play with those things. Scientist. What do you plan to do? Intrigued. Horo. I think it's our turn, he said with a confident smile. But both chestnut trees. These were walking through the city of Kuo. But the older chestnut stops when he sees something that caught his attention. Sanji. I'll go ahead to the restaurant. Issei just nodded for Sanji to continue on his way. While walking he didn't notice and collided with a girl bigger than him and fell to the ground. Also. Sanji. Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't notice. Are you okay? Reaching out to the girl. Yes, I'm fine, thanks. Accepting the help of the chestnut tree. Sanji. I'm sorry about what just happened. Convicted. Don't worry, it can happen to anyone. Besides, I couldn't see where I was going either, and for someone younger than me, you're pretty tough. She said somewhat embarrassedly. Sanji. Yeah, well, by the way, what's your name? He asked looking up at her. My name is Yuma Amano. The already known as Yuma said it with a smile. Sanji. I'm Sanji, well, I have to go. See you another time. Yuma. Sure, see you Sanji-kun. He said watching him leave. Yuma. The kid doesn't look bad, haha, I could feel he was strong for a kid, haha, I want to see him again. He thought with a smile and then left the place. Minutes later. Issei and Sanji were eating hamburgers at a fast food restaurant. Sanji. Sensei. What will we do after you teach me how to control my powers? He asked in a low voice so that no one else could hear. Issei. Well, when you can control yourself and I teach you how to fight properly, we will go to the underworld so you can get to know it. The miner was excited since he was only a little bit away from being able to see what demons look like. Although he is going to be very disappointed. After finishing eating and paying, they both went to the mountain. Issei. Okay, you better get ready, Sanji. Because from here the real hell begins. Bumping his palm into his fist. Season 2 finale. A little clarification. I put Yuma because in this story Issei spent a lot of time in that other dimension. Victor was part of Rias' nobility long before that event, and Asia's ritual was done by Danasiak, or however the hell you write that guy's name. Besides, I thought it was a complete waste not to integrate her into Issei's harem in the anime, or well, that's just my opinion, I don't know what you think. Well. Without further ado, I say goodbye. And thank you for supporting this season. The third one will be out soon. Ciao. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.